going back home and praying and being like, God, if this is your will, let it happen. If it's not, block it and send me back to wherever, and I'll serve wherever. Next thing you know, I posted a video the very next day. First video we post after that prayer did 4 million in 24 hours on TikTok.
That's a lot.
It was crazy.
Welcome back to the Cultivus podcast, where we share stories of adversity that God uses to cultivate growth, resilience, and purpose. I'm your host, Dave Carroll, and I'm super excited to have a very special guest on with us today. But before we get to our special guest, this episode is brought to you by One Stop Media KY. If you are a business owner, entrepreneur, we can help you with video. Whether you need help with social content, website content, or doing a commercial, we've got your back. Visit onestopmediaky.com to inquire today. Folks, I have a very special guest. I feel like I've known him for a long time.
Yeah.
It has not been that long, but my friend, my brother in Christ, the extremely talented, I must say, Norman Sanchez.
Yo.
Welcome to the pod, man.
Yo, what's up, man? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, this is really cool. I'm excited to have you on. As I said, man, this podcast is about telling stories, and so I'm excited to help share your story.
Oh yeah,
and to hear more about it too. I'm sure that there's pieces that in our conversations that I've yet to hear, and so I'm excited to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So we'll kick off the episode, man. Who is Norman Sanchez?
Sometimes I wear the hat of a father. Sometimes I wear the hat of a husband, and sometimes I wear the hat of a artist. So a lot of times I am who I am in this day, and today I've been a dad all day, and then I had to put on a corporate hat. So I feel like right now I'm in my dad mode, dad season, getting ready for a new baby.
Yeah, so, that's awesome. So y'all are going from 2 to 3.
Right, yeah.
Exciting times in the Sanchez home, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fire. And I mean, it's a girl, so first girl.
Break it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. They say it's going to soften me up, but I don't think so. It's going to make me more tough.
Hey, listen, I think there are aspects of softening and there's aspects of toughening, for sure. Yeah. Speaking from, the perspective of having 2 and 2,
Facts.
I see both sides of it, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's really cool, man. So one thing that we talk a lot about is like kind of juggling things in tension, right? This is how we operate, right?
Yeah.
If you are a functional member of society, you got to be able to juggle these hats that we wear, right?
Facts, yeah.
So you are a husband, a dad, an artist.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about your artistry, what it is that you do?
Essentially, I am a producer, singer, rapper, songwriter, but a lot of times I'll just like tell people I'm a rapper just because it's so easy. It gets it out the way. But it's way more nuanced than that, because now you got to be a social media influencer, and now you have to be you got to be a brand partner, and then you also
have actor.
You have to be an actor.
Yeah,
you have to be a dancer.
Hey, but you are a thespian.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a really diverse, background. So that's really cool. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, so you're incredible musician across the board. I've been able to see you in action for the last few months. It's been really, really cool to see. So what? Kind of the next step, man. Let's hop in the time machine a little bit.
Yeah.
And let's go back, man. Where, let's talk about your life. Like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Tell us about your story, about how you, came to know the Lord. Like, kind of, we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. Very, very, very normal Southern, upbringing. You go to church on Sunday, or, you get murdered. No, I'm joking.
But for real,
no, for real. No. My mom was very adamant about her, babies going to church. You got to get the babies in the church. Got to get the boys in the church. So I have 2 older brothers, and they grew up in the church as well. And my mama didn't change that when I came around, being the youngest. Decade apart from my middle brother, and a few years over a decade from my eldest. And I just, went through the motions growing up, and that's where I found music. Everybody was so into the moment when they were playing. And if you grew up in a black church, y'all, you know what I'm talking about. These musicians are just so dope. So that's where my love for music started. But also it's kind of where the seed was planted for my faith, even though it didn't grow at that moment, you know.
Hey, that's a little Cultivus plug right there, by the way. Let's go.
It didn't grow at that moment. And then, you know, over time, I started seeing people in the church kind of fall off or do things. And there was a lot of church hurt, especially seeing my mom go through a lot of church hurt. You know, I'm not gonna say I lost faith, but I definitely strayed further away because of what I saw. I wasn't able to ask tough questions like, who is God? What is God? What does this mean? What does this scripture mean? It was very hard to get a solid answer that really made sense and convinced me that Christianity is the ultimate truth. So around high school, I ended up walking away from the faith a little bit, actually a lot bit, but I would still pray every night, which was weird. So, you know, I was professing that, like, oh, I don't believe in God, but at nighttime, I'm like, yo, God, if I die tonight, I don't want to go to hell if I die. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was one of those things, you know, like I just kind of wanted fire insurance.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's a super Southern thing for sure.
Yeah, like you just want fire insurance.
Hey, where are you from?
Houston. I'm from Texas, Houston, Texas, southwest side of Houston, Texas. We call it the SWAT.
SWAT.
Yeah. So, and you know, I was just like, whatever. I'll take. It's funny. The church was actually called Southwest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the church I went to, Southwest. But anyways, it's just one of those things where when you grow up in a church and it feels familiar, you're gonna do that. You're gonna want to have fire insurance. But me, I'm more of an intellectual person, so I wanted to be convinced through intellect, and it just never happened until, you know, one day I just went looking for it, and then it hit me upside the head that there was a whole world of intellectual people who can actually defend the faith very eloquently and very, you know, it was like, all right, who could tell me what I'm looking for, but at the same time, give me something that is just better than you have to believe. You know, because I was actually looking for a family, a home, or whatever, but I also wanted solid evidence. And I felt bad for wanting that, because I'm like, should I want this or should I just believe? Are they right? And technically they are right. You got to have faith. But then I was like, there's got to be some.
There's like got to be something.
Yeah, there's got to, you know, because when you grow up and people are, you got to be, you know, it's just science, man. Religion is just, you know, for people who are afraid to die. It's like, bro, come on now. It can't be just that.
You know, it's this tension, right? It's this, like, you know, knowledge and wisdom are good things. You know, like it's like when we sway too far from one side or the other, like, oh, knowledge and wisdom don't matter, or knowledge and wisdom is everything, right? So you were trying to find this middle ground of like, man, like, I want the faith. I want to believe. Like, I just need somebody to, like, talk about it.
And I felt bad wanting it, you know, looking back now, even just kind of going back into that mindset.
Yeah.
The reason I probably prayed that night is because there was a bit of guilt. Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm asking for something that may be impossible.
Right.
But then when I found it, it was just so much stuff that I realized I was suppressing. Yeah. And I just wanted to live in sin.
Yeah.
That's really what it was.
That's what it boils down to a lot of times.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this was here. Because my mom would have this stuff on. Yeah. Like a lot of these guys, because I thought my mom, oh, yeah, we go to this non-denominational church and whatever. But, you know, I grew up in a house where J Mac was played all the time. Alistair Begg was played all the time. Steve Lawson.
Some of the greats,
R.C. Sproul. And I'm like, wait, these voices, I know these guys. They were on the radio all the time, KHCB, keeping them close by. And I'm like, what? It was just under my nose the whole time. And one ear out the other, I was deaf to it.
Yeah.
So
no, that's super cool. So at what point in your like time frame, right, are we at that you kind of had that encounter with the people that could defend it? Yeah. And kind of what was the turning point for you that said, like, hey, like I'm submitting? Yeah.
Man, it was so, I want to say high school, there was this new age philosophy. You're going to bust out laughing. We thought Jesus was like Buddhist.
Okay.
And he was a Tibetan monk.
Okay.
Me and my friends were convinced that, you know what, maybe he studied our religions and became transcendent and became this. We had such weird ideas. Yeah. And I was walking around as a guy who grew up and got baptized or whatever and knew that, you know, I knew about the doctrine of the Trinity, but I was ignoring everything because this other stuff sounded so cool. Yeah. Yeah, bro, like meditating, dog. Like, third eye open. And so,
illuminate.
Yeah, and then that led me to checking out a little bit of Buddhism, and then I just couldn't get down with it because I'm like, I can't meet anybody who walks that walk and talks that talk, and I'm not about to. I don't have a passport, you know. I can't go. I'm in high school, bro. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna go meet a real monk? So then I had some Muslim friends, you know. We had a few kids in school who were, you know, really, you know, dedicated,
like devout
to Islam. And then when I got to college, that kind of grew a little bit, and I met a friend who gave me a Quran and studied that a little bit. Asked him about it, and he was talking to me about Shahada and, you know, really accepting Allah. And I was like, bro, this is dope. Like, y'all got the discipline, way better than Christianity. And then I was like, well, before I do this, though, let me go check out some other stuff and really dip my toes in the water with all this other stuff. And then I saw that. I want to say it was the Vodi Bakum, The Reasons Why We Believe the Bible is True. That, whoo, boy, I saw that and I was like, yeah, all right, bro. And then after that, I like talked to my boy who gave me the Quran, bro. And I was like, yo, let me talk to you real quick. Let me holler at you.
Put the script on him.
Yeah, I did.
Yo.
Yeah. I wonder where that kid is at now. But and I kept his Quran too. Like he wanted it back. But
dang.
Yeah, but man, I remember thinking to myself after hearing that, this is a whole world. And then that's introduced me to John Lennox, and then William Lane Craig, Jeff Durbin, and all of these dope people who are really good at defending the faith. Yeah. And they know why they believe. And I was like, oh man, okay, I knew it. I knew it was out there somewhere. Yeah. I knew it wasn't crazy.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. It's cool how like people that are all wired differently come to faith. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
Like I know a lot of people that, like, you know, it's a traumatic event, and they're, you know, it's kind of like turning point, right? Yeah. There's, you know, and I'm not saying that didn't happen for you either, but you know, there's all these different scenarios, but it's cool to me because I'm not really an intellectual. Like that's just like, that's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like I like grew up in a home where like it was very much like, you know, my mom was extremely, you know, faithful to go to church. Yeah. But like I feel like had I asked her when I was a kid like about God, she would have been like, you should talk to the pastors.
Facts.
And that's no shade to her. It was just like that. Like it was a very emotional, like tie to faith, which is, you know, I think in its own right, its own way, you know, it's not bad. But at the same time, it's like I think through like, you know, that really, so the intellectual side really didn't hit me like that. Right. And so it's cool to hear your story and to think through like, because also too, you know, in a couple episodes we'll have Devon on, and Devon's an intellect. And I remember we went to college together, and I'll never forget him on campus talking to like the campus ministry people, telling them that Jesus, like that Christianity was a bust, like it was like fake, basically, basically disproving Christianity. And now he's like one of the strongest Christians I know. Yep. But it's like that intellectual.
It'd be like that.
You know, that like that path is so different from mine, but it's cool because it's like we end up in the same place, right? And we get to have these conversations, right? And we get to learn and grow together. Yeah. You know, and so you know, you become a Christian. Yeah. How does your life change like within that next few years?
You know, it's funny, it didn't. It got worse.
Okay.
Yeah. Life got worse. But it's a good thing though, because everything starts falling apart. Your job falls apart because the people at your job, you know, had one idea of you, and then your peers at school had an idea of you. And then there's contention there. There's contention in the family because now you have this newfound knowledge. And, you know, Paul talks about not getting puffed up, but you get puffed up.
Yeah, you get a little puffy action, yeah.
So I'm out. I'm a big old bulldog trying to fight everybody. I'm trying to defend the faith like these guys that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. So life got really intense. But then it slowed down eventually. You start finding that sweet spot where you have grace for people, as opposed to being all excited and full of this newfound fervor. Yeah. And you're just all amped up, you know, just boisterous about about what you know, and then you're so convinced you want to prove it to everybody. Right. So it got a little hard. Like, you know, a lot of my friends I talk to crazy. It got intense, man. But it's funny because we look back at it and we laugh. And I said, you know, and I haven't changed much, right? Besides just getting a lot more weight on my body. Outside of that, I haven't changed. So it's cool to see my friends know, oh man, 15 years ago when Norman was, yelling at us about this stuff, he's still on that same time, and it's really cool to be able to be the one that people call to ask those tough questions.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's so cool, man. And it's crazy to me because like I think about, my brief knowledge of the southwest side of Houston, Texas. Yeah. And I can imagine that, you're probably an anomaly in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what it's like? Obviously now you're in Louisville, Kentucky, right? You're not quite as much of an anomaly. You might be an anomaly in a different way.
Right.
But, can you talk a little bit about what it was like being a Christian and an intellectual Christian at that time with, the people that you ran with, the obviously I know you were talking about like kind of being a little bulldog, but just like, where did you have a hard time with like, having to tell people like, yo, I don't do that anymore, or yo, I'm not about that, right? Like,
yeah, man. I mean, there was this time where I was out there wilding, and I mean, I'm wilding in high school. I was living like I was in my 30s.
Yeah,
in high school, and we all were, because especially like I was zoned. I lived in Houston, but I was zoned to a predominantly white school. So me and a few of my other friends were the minority, and they didn't know some of my friends didn't know how to blend in well. I am a chameleon.
Chameleon, yeah.
So I'm getting into these pockets, I'm hanging out with people, and I'm just, going crazy. So it was weird to flip the script on people. It was weird.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people who actually were like, oh man, Norm, that's so dope. Like that you're doing this. And I was just partying with this guy a few months ago, and they're like, yeah, I remember I tried to invite you to Young Life and da-da-da.
Right.
Yeah, so it was cool. I mean, it didn't really affect a lot, because some of the relationships I did build, we were able to still do things outside of partying.
Cool.
And outside of hitting the streets and running the streets. But I mean, even when I found the knowledge and the faith, man, there were times where I had doubts too. And,
sure.
I wasn't really plugged.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that? What it looked like when you got plugged into a body?
Yeah. So that's when everything changed. So I met my wife, and then when I met my wife, we both had the hunger to go find a body and get into seminary and try to pursue this thing full time. Like not just be half stepping.
Right.
So that's when everything changed.
So where were you at that time? You meet your wife, like seminary? Where's that at?
Man, the north side of Houston.
Okay.
So we lived in a SWAT we lived off Richmond and Highway 6, right by West Oaks Mall for a year together. Like I had an apartment right by West Oaks Mall, and then we moved to the north side of Houston. They call it we used to call it Guns Point, but it was Greens Point. So we stay off like Kirkendall and Rankin, and like right by Greens Point Mall, and we had a bando right across from us. So it was interesting. We had a house where there was no TV. It was just books. And we didn't do anything.
So studious.
Yeah, we didn't do anything besides read and study.
Yeah.
And like our phones were going with, different podcasts and different debates. We were so into it. And then we were going to, we were at CBS, the College of Biblical Studies, which is a subsidiary of DTS.
Okay.
And man, we loved school. We loved it. We would stay and talk to the teachers, and we unfortunately got displaced because of Hurricane Harvey, and we had to move to Dallas, which in hindsight was really dope, because I had to be in a new environment now that wasn't mine, and find out how am I going to act in this new environment?
Yeah.
So
a little reinvention time.
Yeah, reinvention. And that really helped too, because while we were on the north side, I started the job at AT&T, and that was really tugging at my faith too, because you wanted to go into a new job and be like, yeah, I'm this Christian guy. Nah, man, we're gonna shake this up.
Yeah. And it's hard, as a fellow AT&T alum. This is not an AT&T bash session, but we talked about this. Like it was, that was a really challenging time, a long period of time in my life where the tension of being at AT&T and being a Christian and I mean, honestly, you can say this about any, especially retail environments probably feel this, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, sometimes there can be like shady practices that call you to like question your morals. And, you have to make a decision like, hey, am I going to choose to do this to appease or, to win, right? Because like, because like in the moment, especially as a competitor, like there were times where like I was like faced with a decision, like, do I go for the win or do I like take the L for the Lord? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, man,
and
it's tough, bro.
It's hard. And, you're put in compromising situations all the time. And even if they, are really minor, aren't even necessarily against the rules, like you're still just like, this don't feel right, you know? And it's hard to kind of wrestle with that for sure.
Satan is the prince of this world, maybe the king now. I don't know. It's just, it's not built for us,
Yeah.
I love that song. I want to say, was it Jim Reeves or not Jim Reeves? Who sings that? This world is not my home.
Yeah. I don't know who sings that, but yeah.
My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. That's so true, man. I just remember that song always brought me peace.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
that's
I'm like,
really cool.
this world is not my home.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that, and you see a lot of it in Matthew's gospel.
Yeah.
Coming from a guy who's seeing things as, a former tax collector.
Yeah, the like scum of society.
Right. So, you reading his gospel really puts it in perspective because of how Jesus is talking to people about things. Yeah. And then, I mean, of course, it's validated very much so with Paul's writings to the churches. Mm-hmm. That like, all right, y'all, this is temporary.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a really good point. So you're to kind of just go back a little bit. We don't have to like go back all the way too, but like you had like you've experienced a lot of adversity, but like leaving Houston from Hurricane Harvey, like that's a real turning point, right? That's a real like you got two decisions to make here, right?
Yeah.
Like you can like be like faithful and like go to the next thing and do it well, or like you can kind of just sit and be somber and not do anything. So you guys made the choice to kind of be uprooted and replanted, right? So you're in Dallas, and how long were you in Dallas for? What was that season like?
Man, that season was actually a blessing because it was the first time where I didn't forcefully surround myself with people who thought the same things I thought. Now, I did have jobs in Houston where, I would work with non-believers or people of other faith, and I would talk to them, but it was easy. Give them a pamphlet, you talk to them about God, you tell them where you're at, you tell them what church you go to, and then they're like, okay, that's too far, but all right, whatever. And then you could kind of mind your own business, because there was a time on the north side where we did get plugged in, and we were at a church for a very long time, and nobody in the church except the pastor knew we existed. No small groups, no nothing, because, it was just a bunch of elderly people who just kind of went to church and kind of did the same thing. We were happy with that life. Moving to Dallas was way different because now there's a new dynamic. We stay with my wife's parents, and it was dope because I got to see the love of things in other people. People love things that aren't necessarily godly, but I saw the joy in life again, where people were enjoying things in life. And I was like, oh, you know what, man? Maybe I was being too stuck up.
Too rigid.
Maybe I was being way too just... And then I realized, oh man, like that's that Pharisee, Sadducee type of behavior. And I didn't even know it. I'm thinking I'm the Jesus in the story. I'm thinking I'm David. I'm thinking I'm Job. I'm
hero spot,
bro. I'm thinking I'm the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Not realizing I'm the brother.
Right.
Bro, I was the brother. Like for real. And it tripped me out because I just had to deal with that.
Yeah.
I had to do it myself.
Yeah. And that's pruning.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's, to me, when I see that, like when I think about that, like I think about the many times in my life that I've been pruned of, especially pride, like just that pride, like just being pruned off of me and worked on and withered and like, okay, like I got to like take this step back.
Because people see, the thing is when you're in an environment as a believer and you say that out loud, now you have a target on your back. HTV.
Yeah, for sure.
You are You are now a target.
Yeah.
And then as soon as someone sees you do something, there's a famous quote, integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching.
Mm-hmm.
So as a believer and as a professing believer who's defending the faith, oh yeah, people are watching you. So you got to be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes to a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of stuff that I thought was right, but it really just was just something I made up.
Yeah.
A big example of that is wanting to stay in the 9-to-5 grind because I thought music was demonic.
Mm.
Straight up, gave up music and all that. Oh, it's too demonic. It's da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But Norm, you're talented. You can make money doing it. Why not? Don't talk to me about that. We'll get into this whole thing and I'll pull out scriptures that really don't even have nothing to do with it, but I'll bend it to my will.
Yeah.
Get on my Aang stuff. Start bending verses.
Little Avatar reference.
Yeah. But man, it was dope being out in Dallas because I got to see, I got to see my family in a way I never saw my family before. Like, oh shoot, I don't have to pursue pastoral leadership.
Yeah.
Because I could be the pastor of my own house.
Right.
Why am I trying to go out and do all this extra stuff when there's a whole group of people who may need me?
Yeah. Who follow you.
You see what I'm saying?
Whether by choice or not.
Yeah.
They follow you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, bro, I'm so ignorant, because I'm sitting here pursuing this ministry. I'm pursuing, arguing with people. Really, that's what I was into. I was really into the debates and arguing with people, not showing no grace, just really I was like, Jesus said he coming to be the sword. Yeah. You know what that mean?
I'm a sword.
Yeah, I'm cutting stuff out. So, bro, Dallas was dope because I'm like, man, I could just be the pastor in my house. Yeah. And I can just humble myself and really step down. And then I was like, wait, music could be a place for me to be the light. Mm. Because I'm not being a light in my environments where I'm working these 9-to-5s. Definitely not. Yeah. So that was the turning point. I had the aha moment.
Yeah. So you're in Dallas. Yeah. You're working retail at the time.
Working retail.
Yeah. And so basically you kind of had that realization. Yeah. So how did you kind of, you grew up playing music, you grew up being into the, music scene. How did that, obviously the mindset changes, but how did you get back into the space of okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and pursue this.
I started with the project called Adolescence. I watched, my wife and I were really big into watching the Dragon Ball movies as they came out because they were releasing a lot of Dragon Ball movies. We went to go see Fusion F, and then we saw a Dragon Ball movie, came home, and I said, wow, Toriyama told a story of what he thought a hero was back in the 80s. And look at how this has changed people. And it's not necessarily evil. It's amoral. Mm-hmm. It's not immoral, and it's not it's neutral. It's just neutral because you can take it and be like, hey, this is too bad because Master Roshi's, he's weird. Or you can be like, wow, there's messianic parts of this with Goku. Sure. Saving, not to get too deep and make do apologetics for Dragon Ball. Hey, but you see, I'm like, wow, we could use art to tell a story that has God all over it. You don't even have to say the word God in it, but you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. Mm. Story of Esther is like that too. Yeah. And I was like, bro, I am sleeping on myself and on God's strength and power. Mm. So I went to the room upstairs at my in-laws' house and made a project called Adolescence. And that whole project was me talking to myself in a third person, from a third person view, and then humbling myself in some of the songs and talking to God. And then that project, it was really dope because it was the first time where I was like, man, I could be doing music. Mm. Then that same night we saw a basketball game and Curry did something and they talked about Curry and somebody mentioned his faith. And I was like, oh shoot, this guy is playing in the league with the top tier athletes and he's known for not his threes. Well, of course that, but what is he known?
But that's something that people like, it's like you can't say his name and his ability without talking about his faith. Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. You really can't. You can't mention Curry without mentioning the fact that
he's a husband and a dad and a man of God. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That's something that he makes. Same thing with Tim Tebow.
Same thing with Tebow. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, I don't have to conform to thinking that God isn't powerful enough to be in these places with me in the trenches, or be in these places with me while I'm making music that can be just normal, neutral. You know what I'm saying? It could just be normal. It doesn't have to be
super like explicitly over the top, the gospel. Yeah.
You feel it can't be that.
It can't be that, but yeah.
But it doesn't have to be because I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm in the wrong.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Yeah, stop punishing myself for that, because I was like, bro, let everything that I do, honor God.
Yeah.
When I eat and all this stuff, and I'm still working on that, but
Same.
But like, man, it woke me up. So Dallas was actually dope.
Yeah, that's really cool. So
Dallas was dope.
You're in Dallas, you're like kind of getting your music under, everything that you want it to be to get to where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
So what happens to go from Dallas to bring you to Kentucky?
Yeah, so because of how I started thinking in Dallas, I started doing music. Dallas was basically a turning point. We started doing music full time in 2019 with the help of a royalty-free company that just wanted to hire me to do compositions and do songs for them, and they can then give those to people who subscribe monthly.
Yeah.
So it was a subscription-based model, but it was royalty-free music, and they can put on their YouTube, and they won't have to get a copyright strike. Right. I did that for a while.
I'll be using that, what I'm saying? I'll be using that.
So I was actually paying my bills doing that, and then it turned into courting a potential record deal. Didn't work out, and going back home and praying and being like, God, if this is your will, let it happen. If it's not, block it and send me back to wherever, and I'll serve wherever. Then next thing you know, I posted a video the very next day. First video we post after that prayer did 4 million in 24 hours on TikTok.
That's a lot.
It was crazy. And it's the first time I seen millions by my name, and then I did a live stream, and I remember all these believers hit me up. The mascot for the Indianapolis Colts was in the chat, and he was like, "Yo, bro, hit me up. I love you so much." And we get on the phone, we talk, and he's like, "So dope to see a believer who is, kind of barred up and swagged out, and this is really cool." And I was like, "Man, I don't even like football, but now I got to watch the Colts because of you." Because that's dope.
Funny.
So I was like, I'm like, look at God. Yeah. Look at God. So after that, it was like a lot of brand deals, and me partnering with brands, and then making strides. And then after, I would say 6 or 7 months, my brother-in-law calls me and tells me, "Hey, I got an idea. You should come to Louisville. You've been working with these brands. How about we try to blow you up in Louisville?" So I was like, all right, cool.
And here you are.
Come to Louisville, and here I am a year later, and we've grown. We've 10x'd everything. Man. And I'm praying that it can 20x next year. But if it doesn't, it's cool. I mean, if it's the Lord's will, it'll happen. But so that's what I'm doing here in Louisville.
That's really cool, man. Well, I'm glad you're here. First of all, it's been really, just like really cool to meet and interact with you. Yeah. And also too, man, like, I think it's been cool for me to watch you be really humble. Like, that's one of my favorite parts is that, like, I see how much you try to take yourself out of a lot of the nitty gritty because, like, I see you being a husband and dad. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, facts. I think it would be easy for you to be like, well, I'm doing X, Y, Z. Like, I'm cool. Like, you just got off tour that you took your family on. Like, so I want to kind of pick your brain about that. Yeah. Obviously we kind of fast tracked here, like probably 20 years of life.
Yeah, we did. But
it's cool. It's all good.
No filler.
No filler,
Straight action scenes.
Yeah. So, what was it like to be, because was that your first like big tour? Yeah. The one that you were just on? Yeah,
for sure.
So can you talk a little bit about your tour?
I mean, it was great. I mean, it's cool being in an environment where people already know you based off, or they think they know you based off your videos.
Right. So
it was cool to go into that environment. These guys probably they kind of told me without telling me, this guy's going to be stuck up. They're like, this guy, he doesn't curse in his music, and he might be standoffish, or he might not want to hang out with us, and he might not want to talk to us. But man, going through there, embracing people. Yeah. Embracing people. And that's one thing That's one thing I miss about, you know, there was a time where human beings were just so open to just talking and having conversations. We've become so, you know, now you can't even talk to people. So it was nice that all of us were so busy. We didn't have our phones a lot of times.
Right.
So we had to have conversations.
Yeah.
And we're talking about things and we're bonding and we're getting to know each other. And I'm getting to know these people and kind of hear them and why they choose to make the art that they make.
Yeah.
And it was cool. I mean, one of the guys on tour said, you know, I feel like every song that I get is a gift from God. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
So, and it was also cool going and rocking those crowds and sometimes preaching truth to these crowds. Yeah. And they have no idea what's going on because they came to party. Yeah. It's like, we came to party. And then you got Norman Sann up here just a few songs get really deep. Yeah, yeah. And they, you know, they getting hit upside the head with truth and they have no idea.
I think that's one thing that like I've grown to really appreciate about your music is that like I can tell that you are a storyteller. Yeah. Like that's like your artistry is kind of woven throughout every song in ways that's like you have songs where you like just listening like, man, this is crazy. There's no way. Like, who is this dude, right? Like this beat's so different. Like you switch things up all the time. Like I love that you do different voices in your songs. But to me, it speaks to the fact that like somebody can pick up your music and listen to a song and then listen to another and be like, oh shoot, what did he just say? Like go back and you like listen to it again and you're like, oh shoot, like I picked up on that this time, or like I picked up on that. You know, there's a level of depth, right? And I think that, you know, that's what's missing in a lot of forms of artistry. Right? Movies, you know, books, music, whatever artistry, you know, paintings, like not everything has depth, you know? And I think because of Christ, we can have a depth that is unique. Right?
Have I told you the story about Johann Sebastian Bach?
No, tell it.
So when he was, you know who that is, right? Yeah. Okay. So during some of his story, and I may get some of it wrong, but his story was basically he was in the church, very loved by the church, but he started making he started taking more risks with his classical music. And the church rejected some of the songs. Oh, this is too secular. Bro, can you imagine hearing,
I think we should put a little Bach right here just so y'all can see the risk.
That string was too, how do you even come to that realization, right? But the reason I brought that story up is because us now, I don't even know how many years, let's just say a century or decades, we listen to that now, and to us, that is the most like PG thing you can listen to in the world.
Right.
So somebody is always going to have something to say about your art regardless.
You're always pushing the boundary of someone's ideologies or whatever,
Right there.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. You're always going to be pushing the boundaries of someone's ideology. Yeah. And so a lot of times it's not God's ideology.
Yeah. And, you know, I think we try to box people in so often, you know, like that's one thing I've always thought, like, you know, we do it to God. Like that's what's crazy to me is like we try to put God in a box. Thanks. And like I think that as a result of that, we then put his people in a box. Right. And I think we so often forget that we're all people with different backgrounds and different experiences and different ways that we come to certain conclusions. And you know, I think, you know, as Christians, like we all have like a lot of the, you know, similar core, close-handed, you know, truths that we believe in, but like we might just all think about that a little differently. We've got to understand from an art perspective, you know, I'll never forget, like, you know, as a Christian, like I say I grew up, but like for the last 10 years, like the music that influenced me as a Christian was like Christian hip hop. Right. Like people though that liked Christian hip hop when it was first kind of coming around, like big, like Lecrae, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, like they started to hate Lecrae because they said that he was sounding different. Yeah. But it was just because he was exploring more of his artistry. Yeah. And you know, and you can say that about anybody. You know what I'm saying? Talk about anything, right. You know? No, you're right. And like, I think that all too often, and is he perfect? Oh, he's imperfect. He makes mistakes. That's what we got to realize. Like, that's my thing is like, if your life was broadcasted on TV, right? If your thoughts, if your actions, if you're, the things that you tell somebody in confidence were broadcasted, like people would come to question you all the time too, right? It's just like, that's the thing about sin, right? Is we're all sinners. Yeah. We're all in progress. And I think that's one of the themes that I keep coming back to when it comes to this podcast, is that like we are constantly growing. Mm-hmm. Like there's only one time that we finally get uprooted and it's over. Yeah. Right. And then we're made perfect. Right. Yeah. But like that's a one-time thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, we're constantly a work in progress. We're constantly, going through droughts. We're constantly going through so much rain we can't handle it, and it's actually damaging us, right? Yeah. We constantly are being pruned and being, molded and sculpted and all these things, right? And I think that when you are somewhat of a public figure, like your art is on display, which means not only your heart is on display, but your sin is on display too sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
And so as an artist, how do you how do you just keep like your eyes on Christ?
You just got to stand on business.
Stand on 10 toes down, baby.
10 toes down. But square business though. I think it's all about standing in the confidence of knowing that, that Jesus was perfect. Mm. That's it. That's why I'm convinced. I'm fully convinced.
Yeah.
And then that just gives me so much peace, because that lets me know that when I fail, there's a reason why Jesus was perfect.
Yeah.
There's a reason why everything that was given to the Hebrews and the Israelites in the Old Testament, all of these rules, laws, they didn't work. There's a reason why none of it worked.
Right. Because they were imperfect.
You are a sinner and you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
And so with me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, hey, I know for a fact that I'm gonna fall short, right? You can grow. Sanctification is a process, right? But man, I try not to get into that bag where I think that I have to be perfect,
right?
Because it's easy to do that. It's easy to want to like read scripture and get all pumped up and feel like a superhero and put on your Jesus hat,
right?
Want to do everything that he did.
No, that's so good, and it's such a good point, right? Yeah. It's like there's this middle ground of like, man, like I'm in Christ and he loves me, and like I know that like I'm kept in him, right? Like Paul says, does that mean we sin? No, like we're grace abounds.
I'm the chief of all sinners.
Yeah. But like, no, we don't sin all the more because grace abounds. But like it's like going to be a part of what we do, and so it's like how we respond to that, how we react to that, how we pursue Christ when we fail, how we pursue Christ in those moments of hardship and struggle.
Jesus saw John as a great John the Baptist,
right?
So for me, sometimes I'm like, yo, Jesus is all the way through the roof. John is up there, and it's even to try to get to a level to where I can feel holy. I'm thinking about the things that John the Baptist did.
Man was out there eating locusts, baptizing folks.
Locusts. Didn't take a shower, bro. He's like,
Listen, man. I know some folks that didn't take showers. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like, why? And I think about that too, and I'm like, yo, he didn't even mention Job.
No. Yeah,
he's Jewish. He knows the script. He knows.
Yeah, he knew everything. Yeah.
He knows everything. This guy, like, there was a reason, and a lot of people skip over that.
Yeah,
and I'm like, if my life don't look like John's life, where he was heralding Christ. Like, there's one to come that I can't even touch his sandals. Yeah. I'm not worthy enough to fix his shoes.
Who's arguably in our eyes like the greatest of the guys,
But he. But the image, I wonder what people thought of John.
Yeah.
Did people think John was crazy?
Yeah, probably.
Did they see him as a crazy man? Did he look like not the kid from Wild Thornberries? Yeah.
Yeah,
you feel me? Did he look like, I think his name is Donnie.
Donnie.
But did he look like Donnie? And, if my life isn't even to that level, I like look inwardly and I'm like, Norm, it's a process, bro.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah, man, it's sanctification, dude. It's wild to think that, like, one, like I think back, like it's so crazy to me that like the Lord even saved me.
Yeah.
Out of, the mess that I was and
facts,
am.
Facts. No, facts.
But like at the end of the day, that he keeps me and he pursues me daily, and he sends people in my life like you, and
likewise, man.
And sends people to my life that like encourage me and love me and pursue me even when I'm messed up, and like even when I'm not on the right path, right. And so it's really cool to think that. And I look at the greats, right? I think about like Paul, like it's easy to read Paul's writings and be like, man, this guy's so great.
Yeah.
Then you take this like 10,000 foot view and you're like, he was sitting in jail. He had a thorn in his side, which we don't know what that means. That could have been a sin he struggled with. That could have been a sickness. That could have been an actual like ailment that he had. Like it could have been any number of things, right? But like he dealt with that the entire time.
And stay connected to the body.
Stay connected to the bodies that he was that he had impact in, and and
wrote letters to the body. These were letters to churches.
Yeah.
That's what people forget. They were churches.
Yeah, and when you take it, like I was thinking back to this. We were reading Philippians in my like small group.
Yeah,
and like it's funny, in one portion of Philippians he mentions two people's names like directly.
Yeah,
and so I cannot remember their names off the top of my head, but he's like, y'all had this disagreement, and you got to think about it in context. Somebody was reading this letter to the church.
Yeah.
And so they're reading it and they're like, oh, yep, Dave and Norm, y'all got beef.
Yeah.
And so squash that.
Yeah.
Like Paul was so deeply connected.
Yeah.
And when he received, correspondence like, hey, there's this issue, he's like, oh, I'm going to respond to that.
Yeah.
And those two names are only in the Bible once.
Right.
Is when they got called out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's so crazy to me that Paul was so connected that through all his messiness, he was able to speak life into that body, right? And I think to kind of make it full circle is that if Paul's messed up, Paul, the chief of sinners, the killer of saints prior to becoming a Christian, if his words as a Christian matter to other people, like so do ours, and so they carry a lot of weight, but at the same time, it's like we're not perfect, and so it's finding that happy medium of like resting in that.
Yeah, and staying connected to people who gonna hold you accountable too.
Yeah, it's really
don't run away from it.
Yeah, don't duck the smoke.
Yeah. Don't duck the smoke. Don't duck the fade.
Don't run the fade. Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Fade.
So I guess kind of to kind of pull it all together and end here. What's next? Like what's on the horizon for you? How can we be thinking of and praying for you? Like what's kind of the next step for Norm and Sann?
Yeah, man, taking the music beyond social media.
Okay.
I hate to be this guy, but the election taught me a lot. It taught me that independent forms of media are on the rise, and the world is kind of fed up with mainstream stuff. It doesn't matter who you voted for, that's just the fact.
I think it's just
that's objective facts.
Yeah.
Independent media won, and it doesn't mean that means it's a good thing for such and such whatever party. It just means that we have seen now that the power lies in the people with the platforms. And if you have a platform, believe in your platform and do what you believe is right. Because at the end of the day, with the advancement of technology, you can just access so many different people and change so many different people's lives. The world is, a lot of times the world is getting so much worse. Yeah, it is, but it's hope. More people are being born.
It's been that way.
More people can get saved. You know what I mean? God was coming back yesterday.
Yeah.
You feel me? Yeah. Facts. He was going to come back as soon as they said, oh, he's coming back.
Yeah.
So I think for me now, it's realizing that I don't have to appease to a certain thing anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to
an idea of going viral or idea of doing this because of the numbers. It's about connecting directly to the people who are already tapped in and finding other people who are like-minded and also standing on business. So that's my next phase. My next phase is to transform this, idea of who I am as an artist and a rapper into, really being real and authentic and peeling back the layers of who I am. Because a lot of times what people see on social media is a very surface level version of myself.
Right.
And I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I really don't have to water myself down.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
And I thought I did.
Yeah.
I really thought I did.
It's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that, even if you listen to this point in the podcast, like you get to see this growth, right? Because a part of you prior, early Christ life, early Christian life was like, like real, rigid and this kind of like really hefty version of that, right? And then you're like, you kind of like, oh man, I really do need to like kind of soften up here, right? I need to like be a little bit more available, a little bit, take that innate ability you had to be a chameleon and kind of be that, to be able to be a light. And now you're like kind of, okay, now I'm back on this, I'm on the path of like, okay, I know what each of these sides looks like and what each of the extremes of these sides look like. And so now I get to, like, I'm me now. Like, this is what you get.
Facts.
And I think that that's like a really, obviously within reason, that's a really good place to be in as a Christ follower with the platform. Yeah. Because that's what's so, people don't understand what it's like when you do have, I mean, in comparison, I have a very small platform. But like, I'm thankful to be out of a corporate America world where I felt like I had to kind of shelter my platform a little bit. And now I just get to be me. Yeah. Like, I get to be me in every client interaction I have. Like tell people that, like, the reason I'm here is because of Christ's love for me and him pulling me out of the fire. Multiple times, even after I became a Christian, like he was with me through all that. And like, now I get to do this thing I love doing. And, I do it this way because I'm wired like this. And if you don't like that, like, that's okay. Facts. Like, I love you and like, I hope you do well. Yeah. I don't have to, in order to provide for my family, I don't have to compromise that. I don't have to water that down, and it's cool to see you kind of figuring that lane too of like, you don't have to answer to some like record label. You don't have to answer to some like algorithmic, BS, right? Like, you get to be you. Fact, no. And if you can build your own platform, then nobody else can take that away, and like, it's, I think you can honor God in that, like, heavily. And I think absolutely, I'm super excited to watch that. And it's been cool to see, what you do now. And I'm excited to see what that future holds for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm pumped too, bro. Cause I think it's time for everybody to just, shake the dust off. Yeah. Generational curses and all of this stuff that people use as excuses to weigh them down and to make them not believe in themselves in terms of following passion and purpose. Yeah. It's whack. Don't do that no more. For sure. Don't do it. Because there's so many people out in this world. Somebody is waiting. There's an audience primed and ready for you. Yeah. Because if they can do it for the degeneracy, they're going to do it for something that's pure. Yeah. I guarantee you.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's really cool. And I think you're exactly right. Yeah. And, that's the thing, is that we need people in every sector, right? Like, you don't have to, you said it earlier, like, there's a place for pastors and preachers, and they're needed and required and necessary for the equipping of the saints, right? Yeah. However, we're needed in all sectors. We need Christians in retail. We need Christians in movies. We need Christians, blah, blah, XYZ here, there, everywhere, right? Like, there's a platform that you can win with for Christ and to provide for your family and to pursue your artistry and the things that you're passionate about. And I think that's really cool. And I love, like, that's one of my favorite parts. My favorite things that's happened post-COVID is I have seen so many people being like, man, I refuse to compromise. Yeah. And I think that's been really cool. That was a big change agent for me, right? Yeah. It's like, being that mindset of like, I'm not going to keep on just like keeping on because I need to. Like, I'm going to find something. There's going to be something out there for me, and it took time. And I'm glad it did, because I would have fumbled it, then. But it took time. But here we are, and we get to live to tell another story another day, right? Thanks. And so, man, I am super excited for you. Yeah. I think that it would be so cool to have you back on in a year, see what the last year has been like. Oh, yeah, that'd be dope, yeah. And I'm excited to be, from our proximity perspective, be near you and hopefully maybe help you with that platform a little bit.
Yeah, no, for real. It's dope. Yeah, I'm pumped too.
Super, super excited, man. I'm excited for your family to add on and be in the mix with y'all there. So, man, thank you for being on. I appreciate you. Everybody listening out there, thank you. If you rock with this, man, please subscribe. do all the things. It helps us out. Make sure you follow us on socials, and make sure you keep up with Norm as well. I'll link his social media accounts and stuff down below so you guys can catch up with him. But yeah, man, thank you. This is the Cultivus podcast by One Stop Media KY. Appreciate you. Until next time, man.
Until next time.